Is section 3.2 in your book, starting on page 80. Our goal is add positive and negative fractions and decimals, so please set your notes up the way we typically set our notes up. So when we are adding positive and negative fractions and decimals, we are first going to estimate. Then we're going to compute. That way, when we do the computation, we have an idea of what the answer should be. So estimate first, then add or subtract fractions or decimals. So here's example 1. We're going to estimate it first. So this is right out of your book on page 80, negative 5/6 plus 1/3. If I estimate that, I do 5 divided by 6. Should be able to do that pretty fast now. It's 0.83, and that is closer to 1 than it is to 50 cents. We do 1 divided by 3. That is closer to 50 cents than it is 0. So our estimate is -1 plus a half is -1/2. That's what we are going to expect our answer to be. So negative 5/6 plus 1/3, we're going to need a common denominator. So that's going to be 6. So what you see me doing there is changing 1/3 to 6. So now I add negative 5 plus 2, and this is going to have a denominator of 6. So to add negative 5 to 2, I have to use the addition of integer rules. Negative 5 plus 2 is a larger negative combined with a smaller positive. So that is going to result in a negative answer, even though it's going to be smaller. The pink is going to be smaller, indicating that we find the difference between 5 and 2. So notice that it gets smaller, and I do 5 minus 2. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and that's going to have a negative answer. So negative 3/6, which is what we estimated, -1/2. Okay, example 2 is right out of your book on page 81. It's the word problem, -3 1/4 plus -1 2/3. So first thing we're going to do is estimate. So we're going to have to do 1 divided by 4. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. That's closer to 0.5 than it is to 0. It's closer to 50 cents than 0. So we'll change this in just a minute to 3.5. So 2 divided by 3 is 0.6. 0.66. So that's going to round, this is going to round to 3.5, and this is going to round to 1.5. Now, you can see I made an error in my estimation. This should have gone up to 3.5 instead of 3. Our estimate still works, it's just not as good as it could have been. So now we're going to compute the actual answer. We're going to have to change these mixed numbers to improper fractions. So I do 4 times 3 plus 1 to get 13/4. It's still negative, and I do 3 times 1 plus 2 to get 5/3. So I'm going to need a common denominator. These are still both negative. The common denominator is going to be 12. 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm going to do 3 times 13. I get 39. Still negative. 3 times 4 is 12, so I do 4 times negative 5. I get negative 20. So now I'm going to combine negative 39 12s with negative 20 12s. A negative combined with a negative results in even more negative. And I indicate that with color, and I should have probably even made this one even larger, showing that they're combining. So negative 39 plus negative 20 is negative 59. My last step is to divide 59 by 12 to see how many wholes we have out of that, how many whole numbers, and then what fraction is left over. Remember, when I'm doing 59 divided by 12, I just want to see how many groups of 12 I can make. I can make 4 groups of 12, that's 48, and there's 11 left over. And that was pretty close to my estimate of negative 4.5, which really should have been negative 5. Okay, last example is going to go fairly quickly. It's from page 82. Negative 3 and 52/100 plus 14 and 7/10. So I'll use money to estimate this. Negative 3 and 52/100 would be close to 350. 14 and 70 cents would be closer to 14 and a half, and again I made an error in my estimation, but my estimation is still valid. It's just not as good as it could have been. Again, 70 would go to 14 and a half. That would make this, instead of 11 and a half, this would be 3 and a half, negative 3 and a half plus 14 and a half. So it would be 11. Pretty close. Okay, now when I'm combining these, I have to notice that this is positive and this is negative, so I have to find the difference. One is negative, one is positive. I have more positive than I have negative, so the answer is going to be negative. It's a little bit smaller, showing that I have to find the difference between 14.7 and 3.52. Notice how I filled a 0 in with 14.7, excuse me. I have to borrow from that 7 because I can't take 2 from 0. So the answer is positive 11.13. And there's my third error. I made negative, but I fixed that one. 11 and 18/100.